Wolfie, welcome back. How you doing, my friend?
Afternoon, boys. I'm good. How you two doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. A lot has changed since we last spoke. Nuno is now your manager. It was Cooper's last game when we did speak. I think it was all the way back in, when was it? November? When was it?
It'd have been
Early
December
December,
time,
wasn't
wouldn't
it?
it?
Yeah, December
mid-December.
time.
Brennan
Yeah.
Johnson couldn't hit a barn door.
Yeah, Brennan Johnson's firing on all cylinders at the moment. But
I did tell you, he's a slow burner. That's what he did for us last season. Once the World Cup was out of the way, he started playing well, and he's been pretty good for you guys as of late.
yeah, I'm loving Brennan Johnson, to be honest with you. And but talk to me about what's changed since Nuno's come in and Steve Cooper lost his job, because obviously we've been in the pleasure of having Nuno ourselves in the hot seat, and a lot of Spurs, I would probably say 100% of Spurs fans weren't happy when Nuno was in the hot seat at Spurs. But tell us about your experiences with Nuno.
It's interesting because when Cooper went, and thank you, I guess, because he needed to go. I think your game was the final one that pushed him over the edge. But when Nuno was announced, when I was speaking to Spurs mates and versus Wolves mates, it was yin and yang. What the kind of feel was about Nuno. Nuno for Wolves was treated like he was almost Cooper for Forest. There was a real connection between him and the fans. But from the Spurs people, it's just like, as you said, 100% were like, no, it was some of the worst times we saw. I was like, but you were top of the league after a couple of games. You beat Man City. Yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. And it was like, moved on. But it's been a mixed bag. We've seen the Nuno of Wolves and we've seen the Nuno of Spurs, if you like, because he came in with a bit of a bang. We lost the first game to Bournemouth, but that was because the ref was on the books with that Willy Bolly sending off, which was never a sending off. But then we went and beat Newcastle, we went and beat Manchester United, and things were looking on the up. And then we got hit with the PSR charges, and literally since then, he's turned into the Spurs manager that you guys had rather than the Wolves manager. And we were seeing signs of more and more defensive football coming in, where he was very, very aggressive in the first few games. And it's not until Fulham this week where we've suddenly seen that handbrake released, and the Nuno that joined Forest at the start is now showing his teeth again. And that performance against Fulham this week especially the first half, was the best I've seen in the Premier League since we've been back. It was really impressive.
In terms of those PSR charges, obviously, as a Forest fan, you're not going to be happy about them. But what was the reaction amongst a lot of the Forest fans to them? Because obviously at Everton, they hold up the placard saying corruption, and they're not happy about it. Is it a similar feeling amongst Forest fans? Or is there a general acceptance of it?
It's a mixed bag. I mean, there's no Forest fan that will turn around and say to you, we didn't breach. We breached, yeah? But our gripe with it is it's not a level playing field. The majority of the teams in the Premier League could overspend, should I say, by 105 million. We could only overspend by 61 million. We came with a squad into the Premier League. Remember, we weren't expecting to go up that season. We were bottom of the Championship. We came into the Premier League with a squad that was worth 12 million. Everything, altogether 12 million. That was it. So we had to spend and build up. Some will say we went too much and what have you. But it's the thing that bugs me is when Norwich come up and they just come straight back down because they're just there for the parachute payments. Everyone has a go at them saying, well, why are they coming up if they don't bother? But when a team comes up and tries to compete, suddenly it's like, oh, why did you buy 6 million players? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? It's like no one's ever happy with whatever a team comes up and does. There's always the opposite agenda to it. So, yeah, I was annoyed that we got the points, mainly because I don't think the rules are fair and allowing for a level playing field. Like, how can you go into a league where only 3 teams are expecting to win it and the other 17 teams have, 17th for 5 teams is winning the league, finishing 4th is winning the league. You should really have 15 teams. If we're going to call this the most competitive and best league in the world, surely you want more than 3 teams being really competing for the title, So it's just not a level playing field. And they're getting rid of the rules in the summer anyway because they're not fit for purpose. and they've never given penalty points to a breach in finance before Everton and Forest. So are you telling me Man City sitting there with 115 charges? Why hasn't that been dealt with? So that's my gripes.
I
I could go
understand,
on.
but what do you say to the argument, that Forest have kind of spent haphazardly? They haven't really spent smartly, and maybe if they were a bit smarter with their spending, they wouldn't be in this position. Because you said you signed a lot of players, a lot of them haven't worked out. And I think I was assuming last season you signed a lot, and then this season again you went on another spending spree. Like, has all the business been smart?
It's not all been smart, but what business ever is? Look how much. Look at just give you a random example. Didn't West Ham buy, what was that Italian striker last season called?
Scamacca.
Yeah,
Scamacca. 35 million. No one's talking about that money that they wasted on him. Of course, every team buys duds. That's how it's going to be. The only thing is, it was accelerated with Forest. Look, we shouldn't have brought 30 players last year. There's no two ways about it. There are players that we bought that to this day have never played for Forest.
That's
that's the ones that I would agree with you guys on. Yeah. And there are players that we bought that have already been sold on who never played for Forest. Yeah. So it's those are the ones where it was stupid. But we did need, I would have said if you'd got 15, that would have made more sense to bulk out a squad, because we had no squad. That was the thing with it. But yeah, everyone has dud signings. But my counter argument would be, okay, well, had we not signed these players, we wouldn't have unearthed a Murillo. We wouldn't have unearthed, an Omar Bamadeli now coming through, a Danilo. These kind of players, some of them that do succeed, will be the ones that kick on, that Forest will sell for a huge profit going forward. So yes, it's haphazard, but there is a little bit of logic behind it, but very, very deeply hidden behind it.
Yeah, for me, it just seemed like a complete scattergun approach, like just signing anyone and everyone that they can sign. And when you've got these kind of laws in place, surely you've got to target these signings with precision instead of just going all over the place and signing players who 2 years down the line haven't even had an appearance for Nottingham Forest. I think it's crazy to me when you know what the laws are, and I think it's pretty careless from the chairman.
It is, but when you say that, had we sold you Brennan Johnson 2 months earlier, we wouldn't have breached. So the margins are fine. The margins are fine. So they were anticipating that Jono would have gone earlier. I mean, he could have gone earlier. We had offers from Brentford for 30 million. But I mean, who wants to play for
Atletico Madrid
Brentford?
apparently as well.
Atletico Madrid as well, yeah. That kind of felt a weird offer. It was like an email offer that Forest countered back with 65 million. And it's like, okay. But, so it's weird. And then they never responded again, apparently. So, but, it's just weird that when we're talking that Forest breach by 34 million, it sounds like a big number, but that's what 2/3 of the Jono fee. And had that happened a bit earlier on, then we wouldn't be having this conversation on it. And at the end of the day, what happened was Forest stayed up. So how silly the approach looked, it worked. We were able to stay up. Look at Sheffield this season. They've come up, done nothing. They're going straight back down. Yeah. At least Luton are giving it a go. Okay, they're probably the exception to it. They're probably still going down. And Burnley have spent a lot. And no one's talking about how much Burnley have spent either. And they're going back down. So this is Premier League.
Yeah, it's true. I think Burnley are actually giving themselves a bit of a fighting chance, particularly if they get points this weekend. But what's the story with Nottingham Forest now, and in terms of your summer business this summer? How are you going to be able to spend? Do you need to bring in a certain amount before you need to start spending
this is
again?
where Spurs are coming into it again.
Daniel Levy's licking his lips. But Wolfie, I was saying, where does this leave you in terms of Nottingham Forest's summer business? Do you need to bring in a certain amount before you can spend again?
Yeah, I think you're going to play a part in it from what I'm hearing. But I think what we're going to see isn't just going to be Forest. It's going to be the whole Premier League. You're going to see this 30th of June deadline where loads of teams need to sell players because that's when the PSR financial year closes. And then from the 1st of July, you're going to see Forest start spending again, because we will have 105 in terms of what we can spend, because this would be our 3rd year, assuming we stay up. So, sorry, 1 sec.
It's all right.
Bloody kids upstairs. But the one that's going to be interesting is Morgan Gibbs-White, because you guys apparently are linked with him yet again. I've seen so many links with him, and Levy wants to get a cut price deal on him and try and get him in before the 30th of June, knowing that Forest are likely to breach this summer if we don't sell someone before the 30th of June. So I think Morgan Gibbs-White is going to be interesting, to say the least, and what you do with him.
Yeah, I think he's a player I've been massively impressed with. I do wonder, where do you think he would fit in at Spurs? Obviously, we have Maddison here. Do you see him as like more of a number 10, or do you see him as very versatile? Maybe he can play a box-to-box kind of role. Like, if you were to sign him, where do you think he would fit in at Spurs?
Well, first I'd say don't play him wide. That was Cooper's mistake in the early part of the season. He needs to influence the game from the middle. His most natural position is the 10, but he's also played as an 8 or as a quarterback, if you like, sometimes for Forest. He's really, really talented. Like, it's oozing out of him. I think he will be better than Maddison, and he's younger than Maddison as well. Maddison, for me, sometimes can look a little weak on the ball and sometimes is a bit injury prone. MGW is 99% of the time fit and ready to go. And he works so hard tracking back. So as good as he is going forward, he puts the hard yards in getting back. So I personally like him as a 10. At the moment, there is a debate in the Forest fan base whether or not he should be brought in as an 8 to allow Gio Reyna to come in as a 10, because we haven't seen much of him. It's almost like Morgan Gibbs-White is keeping... Yeah, exactly. So did we. So what we're thinking might happen at some stage will be that Morgan Gibbs-White plays in the 8, which he did as for one half against Crystal Palace the other week, and then Reyna came in as the 10, and it looked quite balanced. But the one thing I will say, do not put him on corners. He's the worst corner taker ever. He hits that first man guaranteed every single time. But on the ball, unbelievable. Natural talent. But he will cost you more than Brennan. As much as Levy will try and put a deal together, he's way more talented than Brennan.
Interesting. Talking about Brennan, obviously you mentioned it at the beginning of the call, but how do you feel like he's developed at Tottenham? When you watch him, do you feel like he's a better player than he was at Forest? Do you see similarities? He seems to be a player at Tottenham recently who's getting a lot more assists than he was at Forest. At Forest, he was much more of a goal scorer. I think he scored over 10 goals last season. Now I think he's got 5 goals, 7 assists. So what do you make of his development at Tottenham?
I think it's as far as I thought it would go, where he would take a little bit of time to settle in, because at Forest he was the big name, and then coming into Spurs, obviously he's surrounded by like his son, Maddison, etc. Some names that he would look up to. Whenever I hear him talking about Son, you can see that glint in his eyes. It's almost like, I'm playing with a boyhood hero, or this is a footballer that I look up to, kind of thing. So I think that took him a little time to get past, and then understanding how Postecoglou wants him to play. At Forest, it was very much focused about ball in over the top, because we were used to giving the opponent space in their half, so they'd be pushing up on us in our low block formation under Cooper. Jono would have lots of space to work with in the opponent's half, so we were seeing a lot of Hollywood balls coming into him. So for me, that's something he had to develop, because you would have the opposite, where you're pressing higher on teams. He's not going to have as much space to work into. The biggest development I've seen with him is his footballing IQ at getting into the box, so inverting in, a bit like the goal he got in your previous game. That's the development that he didn't have at Forest. So sniffing the opportunity and anticipating that position, I thought he did really well, because the ball was almost played behind him and he had to adjust his body back to get into position. He didn't have that at Forest. His finishing, I think, is better at Forest, but I still think you haven't even seen the best of him yet. I still think there's a long way to go with him, and he's just going to keep on developing. But there was a section of the Spurs fan base that was really impatient with him at the start, man. He was getting dog's abuse at the start, and I just think the fact that Postecoglou's been patient with him, brought him in at the right times, and he's keeping Kulusevski out. In my opinion, right now, his form's better than Kulusevski's. And when you guys played us at the City Ground, Kulusevski was your star man for that night. He really ran the show. So it kind of shows you how form switches throughout the season.
Yeah. Let's get down to business, though. Let's talk about the game this weekend. 6 o'clock kickoff on Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How do you feel that Nottingham Forest will come to this game and set up on the back of a really good win, 3-1 on the weekend?
Well, I'm going to say off the bat, we're going to win. I'll tell you boys that now, right? So, you're going to need to find your Champions League points from somewhere else. You're going to play into our hands. That's what's going to happen. You're going to push up high like you do. I think Elanga's going to be extremely important in this game. I think with Udogie, I always get his name. Is that how you meant to pronounce it?
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Yeah,
Spot on first time, Wolfie.
Okay, cool. I think he's really good going forward, but can be a little sus going back. But if Van der Ven covers that side, you might be okay because Elanga's lightning. Now, I have my own issues with Elanga, don't get me wrong. But I just think you may play into our hands and overcommit too many men forward and leave us with space on the counter-attack. And I think Nuno's going to want to prove a point to you guys. Nuno's got you next, and then he's got his former club after that, Wolves, back-to-back. So it's going to be an interesting week for Nuno. And I don't think my biggest gripe with Spurs at the moment, I say gripe, but my biggest critique of Spurs is I just feel you don't want to shoot. Like, you're dancing the ball around too much. And it really just feels like Jono's the only one really trying to push into position and trying to score or create an assist. And I just think, just shoot, man. Just shoot. Son, I'm so used to seeing him cut in edge of the box, just finesse it into the top bins. He's not doing that. I'm not saying he's been playing bad, but I'm a little puzzled as to why it's not happening with Spurs in terms of just shoot. Just play free flowing. Take the handbrake off. If you miss, you miss, but at least take your shots. And that, for me, if you don't do that, that could cost you the game. You'll create chances against Forest. We're crap at corners, at defending them and taking them. But I feel like Spurs are currently being tagged after that Everton game, the way they got into Vicario. I think Nuno will have a look at that. I thought the corner he gave away against West Ham was really weak, poorly marked. So I think Nuno will be having a look at set plays against you, but I'm not too hopeful on that because we're rubbish at set plays at both ends. But yeah, I am quite confident that we're going to win this one because I think we're 2 wins away from full safety, even with the points deduction. But yeah, I'd say 3-1 Forest.
Just 2 wins. And I remember even recently, Forest gave Liverpool a really good game. I know it was at the City Ground, but Liverpool had to wait till the last pretty much kick of the game to win that one. I want to ask you actually about the goalkeeper situation because last time we played, Matt Turner was in goal and he was a big reason why Spurs won that game.
The reason.
Pretty much, yeah. He was very suspect for both goals, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. You've now got a new goalkeeper and you think he's a much better option than Matt Turner?
So with Matt Sells that we've got now, what the best compliment I can give him is that I hardly notice him. And that's what I want from a goalkeeper. I don't want to notice them. Matt Turner, with him, you just, every time he got the ball, you're nervous. And it's not just you that's nervous, the crowd's nervous, and the defense is nervous because he's nervous as well. He just ends up punting the ball out of field if we're lucky, or doing what he did against you guys. He then does it against Man U the week after, then against Arsenal. Enough was enough. With Sells, he's not the greatest goalkeeper. He's not going to go down in the history books, but he's so consistently bland is the best way I can describe him. He's made a couple of good saves, don't get me wrong. He saved us in the Palace game and what have you. But I'm more than happy with him right now because he's not Turner, basically.
You know, Spurs have struggled quite a lot this year playing against low blocks, specifically 3 at the backs. And, you know, Nuno is quite famous for his 3 at the backs, but hasn't really been playing that on a week-to-week basis at Forest. Do you think there's an opportunity for him to switch up and go 3 at the back to stifle Spurs a bit this weekend?
No chance. He's 100% going for it at the back. And I quite like that about him. As you guys said, I think we've talked about it before. At Wolves, he was always a 3 at the back kind of guy. And then at Spurs, he switched. I think that was the first. Well, he played it in Valencia as well. And then at Spurs, he reverted back to the 4-back, 4-2-3-1. He did that at Saudi. And when he came to Forest, I thought he would start with the 3. He didn't. He's gone 4. And I like that because he's almost said, this is my identity. This is the formation I want to play. I'm going to get the players who will fit into my style to play in there. Because I thought the biggest chance, the biggest changes, if he was going to do it, was when we went away to Newcastle. I thought potentially he could have gone a 3 at the back there. And when we played Arsenal at home, and then when we played, it was the other week, Liverpool. I thought if he was going to do it, he'd do it in those matches, but he hasn't. So he's just stuck with that. Within the game, occasionally he has changed it, but it's looked worse when he has. So I don't think he will. I think it'll be a 4-2-3-1.
And obviously Chris Wood's in a lot of form, isn't he? In scoring goals. I think he's 10 Premier League goals this season. And
11, mate. 11
Premier League goals. After he scored a hat trick against Newcastle, didn't he? And then had scored in midweek. Did he score midweek as well?
He did.
I thought that header. When was it? I think it was against Palace. That outrageous header. I thought that header did not get enough credit. I thought it was outrageous. Do you think he's obviously is Awioni still injured? Because I was a massive fan of Awioni, but obviously Wood has now got that place at the moment.
Yeah, Awoni's out till end of April from last updates we've heard. Look, Chris Wood, I was his biggest critic, full stop. When we bought him in for 15 million plus 4 million loan fee, I was fully against it. I thought, he was a 31-year-old back then. But Nuno needs to be given a lot of credit. And Chris Wood, obviously, for what he's done. Since Nuno came in, he's used him how he used Jimenez at Wolves. He's fitted into that Nuno style. Nuno never really needs a fast, pacey striker as his number 9. And that's why it felt like Chris Wood would fit in with Nuno. And he's just so confident right now. He's shooting from anywhere. He scored, 25-yarder against Fulham the other day. I didn't know he had that in his locker. That header, if Haaland had scored that header, the one you're talking about against Fulham, they'd still be talking about it on Sky Sports News now. So he's just in form. I think he scored 8 in his last 9 or 7 in his last 8, one of those two. So he's in red hot form. I expect him to get a goal. I expect him to get a goal on Sunday. And he's just the kind of striker he's dropping in between the lines. So it's quite hard to pick him up. He hasn't got the pace, but sometimes the defense don't know if they should drop in on him or should it be the midfield covering him. So he could cause you some problems. But we've got our front four right now is humming really nicely. Callum Hudson-Odoi for me is the one you want to worry about. He's fully confident, fully in form. He scored again against Fulham. Morgan Gibbs-White, Elanga, and Wood. It's just what Nuno does with the 6 and the 8 for me. That's where he's probably got his selection headaches.
I'm trying to work this out, how this is even possible, but how the hell has Nuno got more of a tune out of Chris Wood than Harry Kane when he was at Spurs? I mean, he couldn't get Harry Kane to hit a barn door when he was at Spurs.
You know what? Kane should be the striker that suits Nuno's style even more so.
Yeah.
Because Kane's never been blessed with pure pace. And he would have suited that system quite well. I just think at the time, I'm trying to think who was he playing wide at the time for you guys?
Son and Bergwijn, I think.
Son and yeah.
Because I think that's what it was. Because he likes pacey wingers, and Son being Son maybe was causing the imbalance in there. I don't know, but you're right. Kane should have been his dream style of striker to play with. Yeah. You should have given him more time.
Should have given Nuno more time. Yeah.
I don't think so. Conte comes in and we get Champions League football by the end of the season.
Yeah, and then you're asleep the season after it with the boring football he was playing.
Now we've got Big Ange Postecoglou.
Give it a few months, Wolfie. I'm sure you'll be singing the same tune.
You mentioned 3-1, Wolfie. You sticking with it? You're not really going 3-1 to Nottingham Forest at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, are you?
No, seriously, boys. Well, you know the rivalry with my brother. That's the one thing, him being a Spurs fan. But I just feel that win against Fulham was huge for Forest. We've been knocking on the door. We've been getting loads of BS decisions against us with VAR and refs. I mean, you talked about that Liverpool one where the drop ball was done incorrectly by the ref with our penalties not going for us. And then what's happened is this PSR being given the 4 points is almost the best thing that happened to us because we can just get on with the football. So similarly, if you look back at what happened with Everton when they got given initially their 10 points, I think they lost their first game to Man U and then they went on a 4-game winning streak. And I kind of just see that with Forest, that it's done. We're moving on. We know what our end goal is now. We need maybe two wins and a draw to guarantee our position next season. And we will build on that from the summer. So I'd say just get it at Spurs, beat Wolves, his 2 former teams back to back. And I just think the style you play will suit us. This isn't the type of team you want to come against. I saw you guys struggling against Sheffield United earlier on in the season, scoring 2 late goals to win it. Okay, it was early on in the season. Luton, you bombarded them, but they snuck a lead against you, and then yes, you did turn it around. West Ham, probably a similar style to Nuno. You struggled with West Ham. I don't think this is an easy game for Spurs. I really don't. And I just remember us always beating you back when I was a kid in the Premier League back then. So I just think we're going back to that, boys. We've got to. We haven't beaten you yet since we've been back.
I think Spurs are a bit of a different team now than we were in the 90s. Let's be real.
The Spurs are still Spursy, boys. Don't try and hide from it. You've still got that Spursiness about you. And this is about the time of year you do some Spursy stuff as well, right? So I'm taking that into account.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Don't talk about Spursy when you've got the ultimate Spursy manager of Nuno in charge. But Wolfie, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for giving your insights into Forest for us. Do you want to let the people know where they can find you? And if you do like Wolfie, a lot of people in the comments saying Ange Postecoglou lookalikes.
I knew you were going to say that.
So if you want Ange Postecoglou talking about Forest, you know where to find him, and tell him where you can find him.
Look, right, I do have a quarter Greek in me, right? So that must be the same quarter Greek as Ange, right? And he's a good-looking bloke, that Ange, a little older. But yeah, at Forest Fan TV on YouTube, come show us some love. We'll be talking about the Spurs game, pretty much building up to that. And yeah, I think we're 18 subscribers away from 18K. So if there's some charity going from your viewers, we'll take it. Go
give Wolfie some subscribers. Come on, guys.
But I can tell you what, you ain't beating us this weekend, though. That's for sure.
Only if we win.
So you boys, are you that confident? I love the cockiness. I've been getting it from my brother. Are you
cockiness.
serious?
You've been coming on here and saying Forest are going to win 3-1.
I don't. It's not like we're playing Man City. I don't think it's out the realms of possibility. You lost to Fulham 3-0. Yeah, we just smashed Fulham. Come on, let's use some logic behind this.
You're 17th though.
We're in a false position. We've had points deducted.
If you add the points back, you got 1 place maybe?
Oh, would be a point ahead of you.
A point ahead of us, yeah.
Big up, Wolfie. Always good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you. Maybe we'll have a run through of this after the game as well.
Let's do it. Once we've beaten you 3-1. Remember that stuff.
See you later, man.
See you later,
Wolfie.
The audacity to come and say Nottingham Forest are going to beat Spurs 3 goals to 1.
I think he makes some good points in terms of I don't think it's going to be an easy game for us.
Yeah, look, I agree. I don't think it's going to be easy, but to say 3-1 to Nottingham Forest, there's got to be some sort of delusion there.